29 to 32. 25. 29 to, let's do it to 34. Nice and loud.
On the day when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau arrived home from the wilderness, exhausted and hungry. Esau said to Jacob, "I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew." This is how Esau got his other name, Edom, which means red. "All right," Jacob replied. "Betray me your rights as the firstborn son." "Look, I'm dying of starvation," said Esau. "What good is my birthright to me now?" But Jacob said, "First you must swear that your birthright is mine." So Esau swore on an oath, thereby selling all his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. He showed contempt for his rights.
Yeah, that was a great reading. We should give him an applause. Thank you. Fantastic. All right. With that voice in mind, let me kind of read you the literal. I mean, this is like wooden. It's really literal translation, okay? There's nothing, still like word for word translation, okay? So he comes back from the field. He's carrying his bow and arrow, and he's hungry, and he says, literally, in the Hebrew, it's, "Feed me." Like, no joke, that's what it says. Feed me, right? And then he says, he repeats it twice. He says, "Ha-adom." Ha-adom, right? He says, red stuff. Red stuff. That's the Hebrew. He's like, "Feed me, red stuff, right?" So you can tell Esau is he's not the brightest crayon in the box. So Jacob is like, "Here's my chance. Here's my stupid hairy brother," right? He's like, "Okay, I'll give you some red stuff, right? Give me your birthright." And Esau's like, "Well, what is this birthright to me if I'm hungry and starving right now?" And he actually sells it, and it says that he despised or had contempt for his birthright. It's interesting, right? It's there's this thing. There's a guy. What is his name? His name is Charles Hummel. Wrote this book. It's called it's a short book. It's called The Tyranny of the Urgent. What it means is that our lives are oftentimes just ruled by the urgent things. Like, I just gotta get this done. I just gotta get this done. I gotta do this done. And because we want to do the urgent things, it tyrannizes us. We don't actually end up doing the important things. So, I gotta brush my teeth. I gotta wash my hair. I gotta go grab breakfast. And because of that, we don't have quiet time. We aren't righteous. We aren't rightly ordered because the urgent things tyrannize us, right? It's, I gotta make money. I don't have no time to read scripture, right? I gotta feed my kids, which is so important. This is why when you become a mother, mothers go into depression because they're like, "Oh, I have no more time to pray because this baby is waking up at all hours of the night," right? And the only time that I can sleep is when the baby sleeps, right? So mothers actually go through deep depression with this. Right? And I feel like when a mother is in that season, I feel genuinely the word of God for them is, don't pray. Don't read scripture. Sleep. Please. Take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is just as important as praying and reading scripture, okay? So that is not urgency. That is important. Human life is important, right? But basic things, you know? We've all experienced it, the tyranny of the urgent. So sometimes you have to kind of understand in your mind, so what is important? You gotta decide that for yourself. What is important? What are things that I really need to rightly order in my life, right? And you know, if those things are not rightly ordered, God will come in, and don't worry, remember, He's walking you through this season of holiness and revelation, right? He'll set the priorities right in your life. But you just have to decide for yourself what is important. And do not let the tyranny of the urgent steal what is important. Because this is exactly what happened to Esau. His hungry stomach, you know, tyranny of the urgent, completely superseded what was important, his birthright. And I think that's why in chapter 26, this is weird interjection about how Isaac is traveling from one area to another area. He says, verse 26:13, right? Let me read it really quickly. It says, verse 12, Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. Okay? Do you know what that means? He planted 1 and he got 100. I mean, that's incredible. If you can just get double, I mean, that's a lot, right? But he got 100-fold. The Lord blessed him. And then it says, verse 13, the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. Literal word for word, it means the man became great, and continually becoming greater, he became very great. So obviously Isaac became very great. And this is the inheritance Esau just gave up for a hungry stomach. You know? So do you see how Genesis is really written as a kind of a cohesive story? There are arcs of stories that are being told, right? So don't try to just read chapter by chapter. That's why doing what you do with DBS, trying to read the entire breadth of the story, is very important, right? So following this arc, Jacob, Mr. Heel Grabber, now he has the birthright. What's he going after next? He wants the blessing. I mean, Jacob wants it all. This man knows what's important, and he's determined to get it. Right? He's going to lie, cheat, and steal, literally, for it. So he goes, and his mother is just, talk about codependency. I mean, this is a classic codependent relationship right here. If you guys come from an abusive home, you will most likely, generally, not most likely, you will many times be drawn towards codependent relationships. Okay? One has to be the savior, and one has to be the victim. That's how always codependent relationships work. And if you come from an abused home, watch out. That's generally what you're gonna. If you're a woman, you can always want to save the man. I can save you. I can change you. And the man is always gonna be like, help me, or the reverse. That's codependent relationships, highly dysfunctional and unhealthy. So you got to prayerfully be able to constantly set boundaries for yourself. But that's another lecture for another time. So he basically goes in, and you have to think, Esau must have been one hairy man if you have to put calf skin on your arms and your neck. And then his dad touches it and he's like, this is my son. It's like, wow. I mean, he didn't shave. He had to mow. He had to mow his arms. It was just, wow. And he must have been so attractive with the ladies because he has 3 wives. And Jacob is still single. But by the time he leaves home, I think Jacob is about 70 years old and he's still not married. He's clean shaven and he just can't get a woman. So sad. It's fine. I'm 40, I'm still single. It's okay. It's all right. So he basically lies to his father with his mother, and he, steals the blessing, gets it. And that's the power of the spoken word. Did you know in your brain, the part of the brain that connects all other parts of the brain is the part that controls speech. And so if you start to say, I'm getting old, all the other parts of your brain will begin to react to what you start to say. That's why I think James says your tongue is the part that steers the ship. There is incredible power in your word. We speak very flippantly, but I think one of the things, that's why you have to read the book of Proverbs a lot. It gives you wisdom, teaches you how to think and speak rightly, right? I mean, if you guys want to watch a good documentary, it's called I Am. The director's name is Tom Shadyac, and he's the guy who directed Evan Almighty, Bruce Almighty, Ace Ventura, Liar Liar, right? He made this incredible documentary, and part of what he talks about is not so much the speech thing, but it's a really good documentary. Take a look. So Isaac blesses Jacob, and it basically gives him the leadership of the family, right? And I think Isaac had always known, according to the prophecy, that Jacob was supposed to be greater than his brother Esau. But I think Isaac kind of really fought it, just because he really loved his son Esau. It's my personal opinion. You take it or leave it, right? And so then Jacob is sent to his uncle. Mom says, go to your uncle. And she says, as soon as your brother's wrath dies down, I'll call you back. Right? And so then Jacob is on his way. And chapter 28, right? Jacob gets to Bethel. And when he's at Bethel, he's tired from his journey, and he finds a rock and he puts his head on the rock, and he has this incredible dream, right? Do you know, I had a similar dream when I was 7. That's actually the moment that I feel I came to Christ. I had a dream of a ladder, a giant staircase actually. Anyway, that's for another day and another time. But he says, right, in his dream, he sees a ladder, and it says that angels are ascending and descending on it, right? So it's obviously a heavenly ladder. That's why the angels are there, right? And he says, the literal, I like to give literal translations in these chapters because it's really funny. At least I think it's funny. The literal translation in verse 12 is basically, he says, in the dream, he says, there, a ladder, right? And then he says, oh, angels. Like, I'm serious, there are no verbs. They're just a bunch of nouns. Oh, angels, right? And then he says, and look, the Lord himself, right? Like, it's this kind of, oh, moment. And what is beginning here? Remember, oh, sorry, you've been looking at the crucifixion this whole time. Oh, I feel so bad, right? Jeez, I'm so sorry. It's not a pretty picture to be looking at, right? So as he's having this dream, what is happening? See, Abraham went through a journey. Now, it's Jacob's turn. It's Jacob's turn to go through a journey. God doesn't just assume that Jacob, just because he's Abraham's grandson, knows him. This is going to be true for your family. Just because you know God, don't naturally assume that your children will, right? Your children will also need to go through their own journey of revelation and holiness, right? So God shows up, and God introduces himself, right? Chapter 28, verse 13. He says, Jacob, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father. 28:13. God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. And then he reconfirms the same promise that he gave to Abraham and to Isaac, and he gives it to Jacob. So it's now Jacob's turn to understand what this promise means, but more than that, to understand who this God is, right? So every generation, every toledot, God reintroduces himself and takes every generation through this journey of revelation. And the same thing, I want to reiterate over and over again to you guys. He takes you on that journey. Don't expect that just because you pray a prayer and now you become a Christian, that all of a sudden you're sanctified and you're holy, right? It's a journey, my friends. It's a narrow road, Jesus says. And he's going to take you on that narrow road to make you into his image. And so he makes this promise, and look at Jacob's response. It's very, very different from Abraham, right? Chapter 28, verse 20 to 21. Dave, can you read that for us? Chapter 20, verse 20 to 21. 28, 20 to 21.
Then Jacob made this vow, if God will indeed be with me and protect me on this journey, and if he will provide me with food and clothing, if I return safely to my father's home, then the Lord will certainly be my God.
Do you see, Jacob is a really different person from Abraham. Abraham is a really kind of like an upright man. He really is. Jacob starts to give conditions to God. If you'll be with me, and if you give me food to eat, right? And if you allow me to one day return to my father's house, okay, then I'll make you my God. What would you do if somebody said that to you, right? I would have been like, Papa, forget you. I'll go to Esau, right? But God says, okay. This is how secure God is. We often treat God as if he's insecure. You gotta pray a lot so make sure God doesn't feel like I'm rejecting him, and read a lot of the Bible just so that he knows I'm on your side. Right? We treat God as if he's insecure, but God's very secure. That's why his name is I Am, right? Only a really secure person can say, I am. That's my name, right? So he says to Jacob, okay, I'll take you up on your deal. I'll provide bread for you You know, I'll give you wealth, I'll protect you, I'll one day help you to return home. And God says, okay, let's do it. Now there's some of us in this room with that attitude with God, to God. Show me, right? It's okay. It's okay if some of us are Thomases. Jesus is like, here it is. Right? That's okay. That's how you've been built. But what do we know about Jacob, right? Jacob is insecure, right? He's clean shaven, no beard, hairless, right? He's not a woman magnet, he's not a chick magnet, so he can't get married. He's 70 and still single, you know? And he feels like the only way that he can get by in the world is to claw and cheat, right? He cheats his brother and he cheats his dad, right? Classic codependent relationship with mom. So this guy has something that I'd like to call mirror mentality, right? You know, if I lie a lot, I assume that others lie. Do you guys know this? It's a mirror mentality. You mirror yourself onto others, right? If I, like to steal, I just naturally assume that you like to steal. If I cheat, I will definitely think you cheat. You're cheating me. And this is how he views his dad, my understanding of Jacob, how he views God, right? And this is the thing that God is going to begin to really correct and straighten up. Jacob's a little crooked. You're going to straighten him up, right? So the first thing that he does is he goes to Laban's house, right? And Laban is a crook. Jacob has met his match, right? Because Jacob is seeing a mirror image of himself in Laban. This is oftentimes what God will do. God will send someone into your life that looks just like you, and this person will irritate the heck out of you, and most likely this person will be your roommate. That in God's sovereignty has set this up divinely to show you a mirror of yourself. This person will irritate you. And often people who irritate you, it's because you see things in them that you see in yourself subconsciously or unconsciously, and you hate it about yourself. So Jacob sees Laban, and this guy is just a cheat. Right now he's like, oh, Jacob, so glad you're here. In his mind, he's probably thinking, how can I abuse you? So then Jacob is like, oh, I love your daughter Rachel. And I will work 7 years for her. And Laban's like, cool, let's do that. I will reserve my daughter Rachel. I won't let anybody else marry her. Apparently she's very beautiful. I will give her to you, work for me 7 years. And Jacob, he worked 7 years so hard and so diligently, and he says that it felt like it was like one day because of his love for, the Bible doesn't say one day, but felt like it was nothing because of his love for Rachel. And then on the wedding night, he wakes up the next morning and he's like, who are you? You're Leah. You're the one with the soft eyes. Soft eyes is another way of saying, wow, you're so ugly, right? Even your eyes are soft. Like soft, like mushy, watery maybe? I don't know. And so people have asked me when I teach, how did that happen? Is Jacob stupid? Isn't he paying attention? My God, right? So I'm actually going to show you, just to break things up a little. I think I have enough time. I'm going to show you a video from a Korean drama. Korean dramas. It's called 동의. Okay, and it's the scene that I think will explain to you in visuals. And I think it's pretty funny. Is the audio working? We gotta just try it. Well, let's go for it. Let me back it up a little bit just so we can check if the audio is working.
고맙습니다.
Oh, perfect.
고맙습니다.
So this is Tony, the main character. And the man who's about to get married
제발 아무 일도
really wants to marry her.
그러게 말입니다, 영감.
But the parents have found a woman that they say looks just like
역시나
터졌군요, 영감.
아버지 이게 어떻게 된 일이에요? 제 옆에 누워있는 저 여인은 또 누구고요? 호양아 어머니 말씀 좀 해보세요. 제 섹시요 숲빛마을에 빡 닮은 제 섹시는 어디 가고 저런 여자가 제 옆에 왜 누워있냐고요?
저 여자가 네 섹시란다, 호양아.
This is a traditional Korean wedding.
아버지, 정말 숲빛마마하고 똑같은 거 맞죠?
그럼 애비가 훔쳐서 장가버리겠냐? 내가 처음 보고 이럴 뻔했다니까.
아유, 그런 거 같기도 하고요. 아닌 것 같기도 해갖고. 저 장삼 때문에 잘 안 보이잖아요, 아버지.
호양아, 푹 닮았어. 정 마셔.
자자, 어서 마시거라. 어서 어여 쭉쭉쭉쭉.
어머나, 잔을 비웠네. 영감, 가득 좀 부으세요. 가득히.
아유, 계속 이렇게 주시면 안 되는데. 우리 생씨가 기다리잖아요.
Creepy.
똑같아. 일단 뒤통수는 똑같아.
저 불을 끄겠습니다, 서방님.
뭐해? 아이고.
부인, 벌써 일어난 거요?
예, 서방님.
이거 뭐야, 이거. 아버지, 어머니, 이 혼례는 무효입니다. 이건 사기라고요.
이놈아 그런 게 어디?
Drama is so funny. Oh man. Okay, so that's what I think happened. He just got drunk. And it's dark, lights are out, who can tell who was, and she most likely had a veil. Anyway, that was just some good comic relief. So, Jacob ends up having 4 wives, right? 2 are slaves, and then 2 are Leah and Rachel. And these wives, they just go at it. Yeah, it's like a battle of having babies, you know? And the only person that's losing is Rachel. She's barren. I mean, it kind of runs in her family, right? Sarah, Rebecca, you know. So they're barren, and you gotta really, if you get a chance, look at how Leah names her children and how Rachel and her slave names the children. You can tell personalities. Leah is actually a really good woman. Names her children very godly things, and Rachel is just all about vengeance. Like, I'm gonna get my sister and get my slave to have kids for me, and it's wow. Women can be really brutal to one another. So can men. So and it says in chapter 30, it says, as soon as Rachel bore Joseph, Jacob goes to Laban and says, let me go back home. So what this says is basically he really did look at Rachel as his first wife, as his real wife, and looked at Joseph as his firstborn. And as soon as his firstborn was born, he wants to go back home. He wants to start his own family, right? Even though he already has 11 kids. And so Laban's like, don't go. I realized that God has really blessed me. I've become so wealthy, and it's all because of you. So make me more rich. Don't go. And so then Jacob's like, okay, well, you can see Jacob's little cunning brain start to turn, right? And he does this really weird magic trick. It's a popular magic trick of the time to peel poplar sticks, and to as animals are mating, you would put it on the ground. And then something about the visual, when the calf is born, it's like born with spots and stripes. It's like this popular magic trick. And I think God even uses this popular magic trick. Yeah, because I think God always uses things that speak to us. I mean, that's my understanding of it. Because people always ask, so was that really God or was that really magic? And I say, well, I think it's myth, but I think God even used that to be able to bless Jacob. So then Jacob sneaks out with all of his children and all his wealth, and he sneaks out without Laban knowing. And it says that Rachel takes the teraphim, the household gods. Remember the household gods? These things? right? Now you have to ask yourself, why in the world would Rachel take the teraphim, right? This gives you a little bit of insight into Rachel's mind. You steal the teraphim, maybe she liked to, practice idolatry, that's okay. But I think she's ambitious, right? You can't, like I said, inherit from your father without these. You have to have these in order to get your father's inheritance. And she, I personally think, is one day thinking, I'm going to come back and get all my dad's wealth. She is ambitious. So that when her dad chases them, he desperately wants these back, right? He chases them down and accuses Jacob, says, where are my teraphim? Forget where are my daughters, right? Where are my teraphim? And Rachel had hidden them under her camel seat. Have you guys ever seen the camel seats? You guys have been to the Middle East, you've seen the camels with the giant seats, right? She hid them under and she says, I'm on my period. So in ancient traditions, you'll actually read this in the law. And anytime a woman is on her period, whatever she sits on becomes dirty and you don't touch it. It's become holy and sanctified, you can't touch it because blood has been spilt, right? And so the dad's like, ugh. And she actually takes off with the teraphim, right? I'm telling you, this family, classic dysfunction, right? So finally, he and Laban make this kind of weird contract. They're like butting heads. If you read the wording, they're not on friendly terms. But they're like, okay, you don't come into my territory, I won't go into yours. Right? So Jacob has just come out of the frying pan, and where is he going? He's going into the fire. Because what happens? Chapter 32. He has just left Laban, made a really great contract with him. And it says, chapter 32, he hears that his brother Esau is coming out to say hello. Right? Now, you have to remember, Mom said, when Esau's wrath dies down, I'll call for you. Mom dies without ever calling Jacob back. Why? Because Esau's wrath has never died. Okay? The reason you know this is because chapter 32 verse 6, after he sent the messengers, chapter 32 verse 6 says, and the messengers returned to Jacob saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he's coming to meet you, right? And there are 400 men with him. Okay, if you're just coming to say hello, welcome. You don't come with 400 men. You only come with 400 men when you basically want to annihilate. You want to kill them off. And this is what throws Jacob into a frenzy. He's like, oh my God, I'm gonna die, all my kids. And he starts to separate kids, right? This is the catalyst, because he knows his brother's coming with 400 men, and his brother is finally coming to claim back the birthright and the blessing. He can only get it back if Jacob is dead. So he's like, what am I gonna do, right? And this is where Jacob prays one of the most humble prayers of his life, right? Let's read chapter 32, verse 9 to 11. Let's get a girl to read. Abby, can you read that for us? Chapter 32, verse 9 to 11. Read it really loud for us. 9 to 11.
Then Jacob prayed, O God of my grandfather Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and to your relatives. And you promised me I will treat you kindly. I am not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown to me, your servant. When I left home and crossed the Jordan River, I owned nothing except a walking stick. Now my household fills 2 large camps. O Lord, please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I am afraid that he is coming to attack me along with my wives and children.
What is Jacob praying? He says, God, I brought these conditions on you. I said, if you are my God, if you provide me bread, if you give me protection, then I will make you my God. And then he also said, I will give you a 10th. Do you think Jacob has done any of these things? I don't think he has. Right? And he says, I am not worthy of the least of these things. I've never thanked you for it. Right? And then he says, please deliver me from Esau. Did you hear this prayer? This is a prayer I often make. This is my own personal prayer. Jacob is basically saying, I know I really messed up. I know I made these conditions with you and I didn't keep one. I know that I have been a liar, and even in Laban's house, I cheated. I know. I didn't trust you, right? But I'm going to ask for your blessing anyway. And I think this is why God really likes Jacob. Honestly. I know. I know I'm not worthy. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm going to ask for it anyway. And sometimes, with God, we got to have guts like this. We really got to have guts. Sometimes when I'm in a really big problem that I've kind of dug for myself, this is the exact same prayer that I pray. Oh God, I know I don't deserve your mercy. I have no right to ask you for it, but I'm going to ask for it anyway. And God says, okay. And what is his answer? He shows up. After Jacob has sent away all his family, he's by himself, right? And it's night. And a man shows up. Right? Here it's like an angel. I definitely don't think he had wings. But kind of medieval and Renaissance artists like to draw those kinds of things just to show you that he was supernatural. Do you know what I mean? So if they have a halo, it's not that they had a literal halos to show you that they were a bit supernatural or something, So a man comes. It's a really mysterious passage. And according to Hosea, it says, in the womb, Jacob took his brother by the heel, and in his manhood, he strove with God. He strove with the angel and prevailed. He wept and sought for favor. He met God at Bethel, and there God spoke with him, with us, him, Israel. And that's why I believe this is really why this is God wrestling. He literally, I think, wrestled with maybe Jesus. Maybe a Christophany, maybe a theophany, right? And this passage will leave you with more questions than answers. Questions like, why does the man choose to wrestle with Jacob? Of all the things that he could have done, he wrestles with Jacob, right? He doesn't wrestle with Abraham. Why is the man unable to defeat Jacob? Why can't he just, if you're God, just pin him down and be Ronda Rousey, right? You guys know Ronda Rousey? Okay, AFC? Anyway, it doesn't matter. And then why does he have to leave at dawn? Like, what's the deal, right? Like, it's dawn, I gotta go, right? And then why does he strike him in the thigh, right here in the hip joint, right? And then why doesn't the man want to tell him his name? Okay, I don't have all the answers. I'm not professing to. But let's kind of talk through some of these questions. Why wrestle with Jacob? Right? According to the Hosea verse, it says that he strove with God and he strove with man. What has Jacob done all his life? He's wrestled. He's wrestled with people. He's wrestled with his dad, wrestled with his mom, brother, uncle, children, wives. That's why when he stands before Pharaoh, he says, my life has been very hard. You guys just read that yesterday, right? That's what he says. My life is so hard. And why has it been hard? Because he's made some really bad choices in life. That's why his life has been hard, right? So I think God comes and starts to wrestle with him because he wants to start talking Jacob's language. Right? You wrestle? All right, let's wrestle. You and me. Let's go for it. In your life, God will talk to you in a way you understand. If the thing that really kind of is your soft spot is finances, God will speak to you through your finances. If the thing that's really soft and sensitive in your life is your parents, God will speak to you through your parents. God speaks to you through the things you know and understand and speak to you. Jacob is a wrestler, so God wrestles. And why is the man not able to defeat Jacob. He wrestles with him all night. It was most likely Greco-Roman wrestling style, so they were probably both naked. And they're just. Have you ever seen? It's a strength. It's not so much about moves like judo. It's about strength. Like who can actually physically with my muscles be able to pin somebody down? So I guess in that sense it's kind of like judo. So actually it's very much like judo. So anyway, forget the judo thing, sorry. It's me verbally, I'm a verbal processor, so he wrestles with him and he wants Jacob to be able to do what? All your life, you've been this hairless, skinless, beardless man. Here's your chance. Show me how strong you are. And I feel like this is God affirming Jacob, right? Wow, you are strong. I prevailed with you all night. This is God really affirming Jacob, right? At least that's what I think. And Jacob is persistent. He's like, I won't let you go. This is what has kept Jacob alive all these, because Jacob knows what's important. See? He doesn't give up the urgent. He gives up the urgent for the important, right? He's holding on to God and says, I won't let you go until you bless me. And this is God's blessing. He says to Jacob, strange question, right? As if he doesn't know. He says, what's your name? He says to Jacob, what's your name? What is God asking, right? What's a name? Identity. He's asking Jacob, who are you? And what does Jacob say? My name is heel grabber. I'm a heel grabber. My name is Yaakov. I am a heel grabber. God wants that confession, right? That name was not given to himself. Someone else gave it to him. Someone else gave him that identity. And all throughout his young childhood, right, formative years, what do people call him? Ah, there comes the heel grabber. Ha ha, remember the time when he came out of the womb and he was holding on to his brother's ankle? What a thief. What a cheat. What a liar. Somebody had formed an identity for Jacob. Somebody had formed an identity for you. And it's sometimes not a right identity, right? So God says, what's your name? And Jacob says, I am Yaakov. I am heel grabber. And then God says, you are no longer heel grabber. I love this. This is the identity that God has formed in me, right? That's why I love Jacob now. He says, you are Israel. The name is a mysterious name. Nobody really knows how to translate it properly. It means one of two things, possibly. It means either he strove with God and prevailed, or, that's right here, right? Or God prevailed on his behalf. It's hard to translate this name. Nobody knows really. But you know, if it is, right? And then God says something really super interesting, 32:28. He says, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, right? Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. So it almost sounds like God's like, wow, you wrestled with people and you wrestled with God and good for you. I'm going to call you Israel. I don't think God's affirming the fact that Jacob was so crooked, right? Let's contrast Jacob with Esau, right? Esau was like, birthright schmirthright, who cares? Like, I have a hungry stomach, who cares about this thinking birthright, right? Jacob strove with Esau, I want that birthright. I know it's valuable. And then, you know, Esau's kind of prancing around the woods trying to catch the animal to give to sacrifice for the blessing, and Jacob and his mother are like crafting this thing, and he goes in and basically steals the blessing, right? Everything about Jacob says he knew when something was valuable and he wanted to hang on to it. Versus Esau, you know, often we can treat our faith in this way. The blessing of God, the love of God, the grace of God, right? We treat it kind of like blah, 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 you know, just, you know. But Jacob, and I think this is what God means when he said, you strove with men, you strove with God to get my blessing. You wanted it so badly that you were willing to lie, cheat, and steal for it. I bless you. I change your name. I give you new identity. I call you Israel. you know? Wow. And I think what God is really beginning to do is to change Jacob's understanding. I'm for you, Jacob. I'm not against you. I'm not like your uncle. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to cheat you. I'm not insecure, right? I'm not trying to protect my own personal possessions and trying to be defensive. I'm for you. I'm the God that when you prayed, I know I don't deserve your mercy. I ask for it anyway. Give me grace. I'm the one that gave it to you. I'm here to bless you. And the greatest blessing that God gives to Jacob is what? He makes him a cripple. Have you guys ever read a book called The Gift of Pain? It's written by Dr. Brand, and Dr. Brand was very famous for working with lepers. Now, one of the debilitating things about leprosy is that what happens is it's a nerve disease. It's not so much a skin degeneration disease. It's a nerve disease because what ends up happening is that, same thing with diabetics. Diabetics, they get sometimes their feet and their legs amputated. There's nurses, they know a lot more about them. If you have questions, definitely talk to Audlin. But when, like a diabetic, their nerves begin to die in their feet. And so they'll stub their toe or they'll step on a nail and they actually don't know it. And then the flesh begins to rot, it becomes infected, and they don't know because they don't feel pain. And that's a very similar thing with leprosy, right? It's a nerve disease. And so that's why, Dr. Brand says that pain is actually a gift. We don't like pain, right? Because what happens if you're on a hot stove, you put your hand on a hot stove, what does it say? Pain! Stop that, or else you're going to burn your hand, right? So sometimes the pain that comes into our life, often it's many things. Often it's us, we make bad choices, or somebody has done something unjust to us and we have pain. Sometimes it's natural causes like death. I lost my mom 3 years ago. Incredibly painful, right? She went through chemo and radiation. Super painful for her. It was painful for me to watch. It's painful for her to get it, right? But there are other kinds of pain in life. Sometimes you make a stupid mistake and it hurts because you just made a dumb choice. And that pain reflex is telling us something's not right, something has to be stopped, and something else has to be done. And I think that's Jacob's reminder. Every time he limps, right? What is the pain that's reminding him? I was forgiven, and I've been given a new name. I am no longer Israel. I am no longer Jacob, but now I am Israel, right? And it's this reforging of identity, and it's making Jacob stand upright to become a righteous human being. And God will do the same for you. I pray that blessing of Jacob on this room. Amen. May you have your Penuel moment where you wrestle with God and God changes your name. I wanted to read you guys a story. It's a children's book, and I think I'll end it by reading you guys a story. You guys I am like 90% positive you guys have heard this story, but hear it again. You know how children can hear the same story over and over and over again? Have you ever seen kids? They're like, you pick them up once and then you throw them and they're like, so fun. And then they're like, do it 50 more times, right? You're like, oh my God, why did I even start this, right? Children have this incredible innate ability to be able to enjoy something over and over and over again. That's called meditation. That's what meditation is, okay? It's being able to think something over and over and enjoy it and go deeper and deeper and deeper. That's what David did. Oh, how I love your law. It is my meditation all the day, right? So I'm going to read you a children's story called You Are Special. I want to leave this with you guys today as you go out to grab lunch, because I am taking 10 extra minutes of your lunch time. I actually have the visuals for it. Oh, look at Jacob meeting Esau. Okay, let's skip all that. I'll do that tomorrow. So here is the story of You Are Special. How many of you guys have actually read the story? Awesome, see? Well, now you get to meditate it on again. So the Wemmicks were small wooden people carved by a woodworker named Eli. Consider Jacob and consider yourself as you read the story, okay? His workshop sat on a hill overlooking their village. Each Wemmick was different. Some had big noses, like this dude. Others had large eyes. Some were tall and others were short. Some wore hats, others wore coats, but all were made by the same carver and all lived in the village. All day, every day, the Wemmicks did the same thing. They gave each other stickers. And this is what we do all day too, you know? You're cool, you're not cool, right? It's just our human nature to do this. Each Wemmick had a box of golden star stickers and a box of gray star stickers. Up and down the street, all over the city, people spent their days sticking stars or dots on one another. I just want to slap the Wemmicks. Stop it. The pretty ones, those with smooth wood and fine paint, always got stars. But if the wood was rough or the paint chipped, the Wemmicks gave dots. The talented ones got stars too. You know, the worship leaders, the preachers, right? Some could lift big sticks high above their heads or jump over tall boxes. The jocks, football players. Still others knew big words or could sing pretty songs. Everyone gave them stars. Some Wemmicks had stars all over them. They were just a giant star. Every time they got a star, it made them feel so good. It made them want to do something else and get another star. Others, though, could do little. They got dots. Punchinello was one of these. I just think Punchinello is so adorable, but whatever. He tried to jump high like the others, but he always fell. And when he fell, the others would gather around and give him dots. Sometimes when he fell, his wood got scratched, so the people would give him more dots. Oh, it's my phone. Can you get my bag? Sorry. It's 12 o'clock, so that's why my phone's ringing. My 12 o'clock alarm. Sorry, you guys. It's saying pray. Okay. Then when he would try to explain why he fell, he would say something silly, and the Wemmicks would give him more dots. So sad. Oh, you guys don't have this picture. Look at him, he's covered with dots. You can't see it, huh? And he's like all sad and he's looking at himself like, what the heck is this? Right? After a while, he had so many dots that he didn't want to go outside. He was afraid that he would do something dumb, such as forget his hat or step in the water, and then people would give him another dot. In fact, he had so many gray dots that some people would come up and give him one for no reason at all. How many of you feel like this sometimes? Geez, I feel like Punchinello sometimes, right? You know, sometimes you're like, I walk into the cafeteria and I'm like, I know nobody, right? And I just gotta think, who cares? I'll sit by myself, right? But we all have those moments of insecurity. He deserves a lot of dots. The wooden people would agree with one another. He's not a good wooden person. After a while, Punchinello believed them. I'm not a good Wemmick, he would say. The few times he went outside, he hung around other Wemmicks who had lots of dots. He felt better around them, right? So insecure people like insecurity. One day, Punchinello met a Wemmick who was unlike any he'd ever met. She had no dots or stars. She was just wooden. Her name was Lucia. It wasn't that people didn't try to give her stickers, it's just that the stickers didn't stick. Right? Jacob, Yaakov, you heel grabber. Some of the Wemmicks admired Lucia for having no dots, so they would run up and give her a star, but it would fall off. Others would look down on her for having no stars, so they would give her a dot, but it wouldn't stay either. That's the way I want to be, thought Punchinello. I don't want anyone's marks. So he asked the stickerless Wemmick how she did it. She said, it's easy. Every day, I go see Eli, right? Eli. Yes, Eli the wood carver. I sit in the workshop with him. Why? Why don't you go find out for yourself? go up the hill. He's there. And with that, the women who had no stickers turned and skipped away. But will he want to see me? Right? Punchinello cried out. Lucia didn't hear. Aw, who feels like that sometimes? So Punchinello went home. He sat near a window and watched the wooden people as they scurried around, giving each other stars and dots. It's not right, he muttered to himself, and he decided to go see Eli. I love this picture. Sometimes we feel like this in front of God. He's so big. Punchinello walked up the narrow path to the top of the hill and stepped into the big shop. His wooden eyes widened at the size of everything. The stool was as tall as he was. He had to stretch on his tiptoes to see the top of the workbench. A hammer was as long as his arm. Punchinello swallowed hard. I'm not going to stay here. And he turned to leave. Then he heard his name. Punchinello? The voice was deep and strong. Punchinello stopped. Punchinello! How good to see you, right? Come, let me have a look at you. Punchinello turned slowly and looked at the large, bearded, manly craftsman, right? You know my name? The little Wemmick asked. Of course I do, I made you, right? Eli stooped down and picked him up and set him on the bench. The maker spoke thoughtfully as he looked at the great dots. Looks like you've been given some bad marks. I didn't mean to, Eli. I really tried hard. Oh, you don't have to defend yourself to me, child. I don't care what the other Wemmicks think. You don't? No, and you shouldn't either. Who are they to give you stars and dots? They're Wemmicks just like you. What they think doesn't matter, Punchinello. All that matters is what I think. And I think you're pretty special. Punchinello laughed. Me? Special? Why? I can't walk fast. I can't jump. My paint is peeling. Why do I matter to you? Eli looked at Punchinello, put his hands on those small wooden shoulders and spoke very slowly. Because you're mine. That's why you matter to me. I love this picture. I was actually going to make a bookmark for you guys with this picture. I promise I will mail it to you. I didn't get to do it in time. I wanted to get it laminated, so I didn't have time for that. Punchinello had never had anyone look at him like this, much less his maker. He didn't know what to say. Every day, I'd been hoping you'd come, Eli explained. Well, I came because I met someone who had no marks, said Punchinello. I know, she told me about you. Why don't the stickers stick on her? The maker spoke softly. Because she's decided that what I think is more important than what they think. The stickers only stick if you let them. What? The stickers only stick if they matter to you. The more you trust my love, the less you care about their stickers. I'm not sure I understand, Punchinello said. Eli smiled. You will, but it's going to take time. You've got lots of marks. For now, just come to see me every day. Right? Come to see me every day, and let me remind you how much I care. Right? Eli lifted Punchinello off the bench and set him on the floor. Remember, Eli said as the Wemmick walked out the door, you are special because I made you. And I don't make mistakes. And Punchinello didn't stop, but in his heart he thought, I think he really means it. And when he did, a dot fell to the ground. And you know, the story of Jacob is the story of Punchinello, is the story of you. All of us are insecure in one way or another, but we really are on a journey, right? We are on a journey Because the point is not so that we become secure people just for our own sakes. Because when we are secure, we are able to walk out our giftings and become the human beings that we were meant to be so that we can bless the world with our gifts, bless the world with our talents. Some of you guys are preachers, some of you are teachers, some of you guys love hip-hop music, rap music, rock music, jazz music. Some of you want to be actors, some of you want to be writers. There is just a wealth of God's gift and treasure and beauty in this room. But we can only begin to walk out our gifts when we become very secure in who we are. Because when we're insecure, we become defensive. You know, people go either one way or another. They become very shy and reclusive, or they become very loud and noisy. It's kind of one of those two extremes, insecurity. And when you're insecure, you use your gifts for your own benefit, self. You begin to mirror self. But when you're secure, you begin to mirror God. And then we become God's image in the world, right? So I pray the blessing of Punchinello and the blessing of Eli on you guys. Let's pray really quick and you guys can listen to announcements.